Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to It's Rainmaking Time. This is Kim Greenhouse. It gives me great pleasure to welcome best-selling author Robert Greene. He is the author of some books I'm sure you've all heard of: The 48 Laws of Power, The Art of Seduction, The 33 Strategies of War, and The 50th Law. He is also on the board of directors of American Apparel, and he's been a consultant for over 10 years. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to talk about the book today, The 48 Laws of Power. We're going to learn about Robert Greene and his life and work. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Robert Greene to It's Rainmaking Time. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me on your show.
I'm delighted you're here. I have read Sun Tzu's The Art of War. I've read The Craft of Power.
I know that book, yes.
And The Book of Five Rings. And the I Ching I've read. And so when I finally get to the 48 Laws of Power, a very extensively detailed book on power, I want to find out from you where you came to such depth and such a large range on this subject of power.
Well, it's a combination of things. Some of it is my work experience. Since I left college many years ago, I had many different kinds of jobs in publishing, in film. I worked as a ditch digger. I worked at a detective agency. And in all of these places, I was sort of very keen on observing the power game as it would play itself out. It was something that people wouldn't talk about, and it would affect your life in a very deep way. There was sort of these unwritten codes of behavior that you should follow, and it was just very mysterious to me. And so I was always thinking about it. And then on the other hand, I read a lot. I'm a big student of history. Machiavelli is one of my favorite writers. So through the lens of reading Machiavelli, people like Balthazar Gracian, and through my experiences in the work world, I just had all of this sort of stuff that was inside of me that wanted to get out. And when the opportunity came for me to write this book, and I worked with a book packager who sort of steered me through the process, it just all came out. And I did some research, but a lot of it was already there from years of experience.
It seems in reading the 48 Laws of Power that it's full of great wisdom on one hand, and yet it seems as if there's a lot of distrust inherent in the meta message, a distrust of people that have to be somehow dealt with in a particular way. Am I correct or am I incorrect in that meta message?
I would say that that's not inaccurate.
Okay.
Some people have said, well, you're almost talking about being paranoid, and then I would say, no, that is not correct. Some of it is a corrective to our age, to the time that we live in. And so I'm sort of I'm exaggerating a little bit. And what I mean by that is because I believe we live in an era of rather powerful political correctness, where certain things are not talked about. We talk about sex, we talk about money, we talk about this and that, but power is something that's almost a little bit dirty, and we don't want to talk about it. Bill Gates, he has his giant charitable organization, and that's the front that he gives to the public. And I'm not saying it's not real, but the stuff that he had to do to get to power, what he did with Microsoft, and all of the hardball maneuvering, that's like a secret. It's like a public secret. No one wants to talk about it. And so we all enter the work world with this kind of built-in naivete, and we think that coming out of college or wherever we come out, that people are sort of these nice people, creatures. We're all going to get along together. We're all on the same team trying to work to put out a book or whatever it is. And then we're sort of usually, I hear the story all over and over again, we're somewhat shocked or blindsided by the political games, the political maneuvering, and we come to realize sometimes too late, that our talent isn't enough. We have to understand people. We have to understand the political game being played. So I'm just being a little bit going to the other direction to sort of correct what I perceive as a problem that we have that I think is sort of cultural and comes from the times that we live in.
The analogies that you use throughout history, like talking about Napoleon and the distinctions between Tesla and then what happened with Edison and others, are very instructive. And I don't think I've heard it before written the way you've written it about what really happened in the power realm in those situations. Very, very interesting. Are you influenced by Chinese philosophy or the Chinese paradigm or the I Ching?
Very much so. I was using the I Ching since I was probably in college. I can't really remember, maybe even before, maybe even in high school. I love the I Ching. It's not just simply a book of prophecy or however you want to use it. It's filled with this amazing wisdom that goes back thousands of years. I have this belief, and it informs all of my books, that people in the past possessed a certain kind of wisdom that maybe sometimes we've lost touch with. Also, there's a sort of wealth, this treasure house of ideas that people have collected over the centuries. So sometimes these older books like the I Ching are filled with things that we've just lost touch with. And I was very much influenced by the I Ching, and I think the structure of the book maybe unconsciously reflects that. And I think I took sort of Asian philosophy plays a very large part in the book, because it's not that Asians are more amoral than we are. If people classify my books as amoral, it's just that they have a different approach at looking at life and not judging things and having a bit of distance and analyzing and seeing things through the lens of power. It's a whole tradition of that from Sun Tzu, as you mentioned. A bunch of strategists, Japanese and Chinese. So I'm very much influenced by that way of thinking.
I could feel the presence of the I Ching all over the place, contextually, the feeling of it. And that's why I want to ask you that. Your book, The 48 Laws of Power, feels like a modern day, how do I say, upgrade. I've used the I Ching for 20 years, but for many people who aren't familiar with it, it's very dense, it's very obtuse, it's very hard to get. It doesn't fit within our paradigm, so a lot of people don't utilize it.
Well, I think there's several things that influenced me about it. I think maybe the style that it was written in tried to get the idea of a sort of a grand authority coming through. The other thing that I love about Chinese philosophy and the I Ching is a sense that nothing is carved in stone. It gives you advice, but the advice is very circumstantial. This is what you must do in this moment, but the next moment or tomorrow you must do the complete opposite. Everything is in change, is in flux. And so nothing is set in stone, and your thinking must reflect life. You must never do the same thing twice. Depends on your circumstance. And so sometimes there are things in the I Ching that completely contradict each other, because you're not supposed to follow every hexagram. Literally, it's what comes up in the moment when you flip the coins or whatever you use.
Right.
So in the book, I give the idea that there are laws of power that literally contradict each other. Court attention at all cost, and then there's one later on about think as you like but behave like others, and sort of disguise what you're actually thinking, because it depends on where you are, who you are, what age, what kind of world you're living in. And then within each law, I have at the end what's called a reversal, in which I say, well, maybe you shouldn't follow this idea at all. In fact, you should do the exact opposite, and here's why you should do the opposite. So that you freeing people up from the idea that there are formulas out there that you must literally follow in order to gain power, because there are no formulas. You have to be more sort of awake in the moment.
This book reminds me of a leadership philosophy almost. Love the part about Law 23, concentrating your forces. This is so obviously either used or not used in politics, in war, the activities that lead up to war, why people win and lose. Can you talk a little bit about the section on concentrating your forces, Law 23?
Well, it is actually a very important law. It's one I often highlight as one of the ones I follow very much, and I think it's very relevant to our day and age, because I think